Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our last concert of the year with this wonderful group of musicians. We are so happy to have you join us. My name is Christopher Martin. I'm the Director of Fine Arts for the Westboro Public Schools. Before we begin, I would just like to take a moment to thank our wonderful administration, Superintendent Allison Borchers, and Principal Peter Gilnitz. Thank you for all your support with these young musicians. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Karen Henderson and Westboro TV for filming tonight's concert for posterity. I'm sure you'll see it online very soon, so thank you to Westboro TV. And I'd like to extend a huge thank you to our teaching staff. With us tonight, we have Valerie Clemans, Theresa Jaques. Way in the back over there, we have Cassie Sulbaran. They're a phenomenal team, and we're so lucky to have them here at Westboro. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the 4th grade orchestra.
Thank you, everybody. So you can probably already see some of the differences between the 3rd grade concert and this 4th grade orchestra situation. And we do start calling it orchestra in the 4th grade because, of course, we have the cello section over here, and we have an enormous cello section this year. In addition to an enormous cello section, we also have some guest players with us today, so you might see some 5th and 6th graders here in the pit standing in front of me. They are members of our after-school chamber orchestra that meets in the second half of the year after school on Thursdays. It is an auditioned group, and that is mostly for our extra advanced players, most of whom have been like taking lessons outside of school in addition to the school program. And so we like to give them an opportunity to play some more advanced music. And they have also agreed to come and help us out with some extra parts tonight. And you'll notice that they also have a bass player, which we don't have in the 4th grade, but could be an option starting in the 5th or 6th grade for students who are sticking with orchestra and are interested in that option. We will discuss it next year, but if you see him playing the bass, I just wanted you to know what that's all about. We are going to start with just the 4th grade orchestra, playing for Jaques, which we worked on from the beginning of the year. And in our mid-year concert, we played unison, which means everybody all together at the same time. And then we split into 2 parts. And for you today, we will play unison as a nice warm-up. You'll get to hear our beautiful string sound and what the whole group sounds like combined. And then we will split into 3 parts. So here's for Jaques. Those 3 parts, would you raise your bow if you are part 1? If you are part 2, raise your bow. And if you're part 3, raise your bow. So you can kind of see where we're going with this. We have like half the violins playing the first part, the other half of the violins playing with the violas on part 2, and cellos are holding down part 3 all by themselves. fun to play, especially when we have a giant cello section like this, because the ending always sounds so juicy. We're going to play for you, the next song is an oldie but goodie. It's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And we're going to ask our guests to play with us, because this year, these students learned not only to play beautifully with the melody and even more beautiful tone coming out of their instruments, and cellos learned how to play it on the cello, but they've also been working a lot on their reading skills, and we use those reading skills, we put them to good use, learning the harmony parts. So you're going to hear Twinkle twice. The whole group is going to play the melody. And then most of our students on stage will be switching over to the harmony part, while a few in the front and all of our guests are going to keep it down with the melody so that everyone on stage can experience both the melody and the harmony part. So Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Thank you. We have one more piece to show off our big, beautiful tone, and that is going back to France, French folk song, and you'll hear kind of the same formula with this song. We'll play the melody all together, and then you'll hear the harmony part that these behind me have learned, and a few people holding down the melody in the front. So, French folk song. Okay, and especially for the cellists, I just want to remark that their stamina for big bows has really increased over the whole school year, because that would have been a lot at the beginning of the year for their arms weren't all used to the new thing. So beautiful job, everybody. We are going to play now for you a song with a totally different bowing style. It's called Allegro, which means happy in Italian, but it also is a musical word that means like for a faster tempo. So we're kind of switching gears here. So you see a different musical style of bowing. You'll also see us doing a technique called bow circles. So you'll see the whole group lift their bow and replace it at the frog for the next line of the song, which hopefully that's going to happen all together. And there's also something in this piece which I feel like I need to give the audience a little heads up about. There's a fermata in this piece, and a fermata is a place where you just hold the note, and you hold it as long as the conductor or the leader indicates that you should hold it. So I get to decide each time we have a fermata how long it's going to be, and they don't know until we actually get to that note, because it's different every time. And then after the fermata note, there's a little pause before we begin again. And occasionally, there'll be somebody who thinks, oh, it's a pause, maybe the song is over, that's kind of strange. That pause is actually built into the music. So we're going to play Allegro, and you'll hear, we're going to play it twice, because we've got a melody and a harmony part to add to it. So you'll hear the fermata note twice, and you'll also hear the pause twice. And hot tip for audiences, if you're not sure when the song is over, wait for the conductor to put their arms down. Then you're sure that the song is over. Or in this case, put the instrument down. So without further ado, this is Allegro by Shinichi Suzuki. Okay, now you see why I gave you the heads up, right? It can be a little confusing for audiences, but it was not confusing for the students, and I give them extra attention points for like really being able to do that and then starting again together. It takes a lot of focus. We are going to shift gears a little bit because our chamber orchestra has two pieces prepared for you as a little mini breather, intermission concert, if you will. And they are starting with we're actually playing two very well-known pieces of classical music arranged for strings. The first one is a movement from Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and we are actually playing a movement from spring, even though had I known the weather today, maybe summer would have been better, but we are playing a movement from spring, so. Thank you. So this is a little taste of what we're working towards, right? Our second piece for you is a very famous string piece called Pachelbel Canon, and it's played a lot on the radio, but also for special occasions like weddings sometimes. So you may have heard this before. It famously starts with the cellos, and in our case, in our arrangement, it's the cello and bass. They kind of set the whole thing up, and they have a repeated pattern for a while that gets a little passed around, and then there's a very famous violin melody over the top, and you'll hear it as a solo and then as a group thing. So, Pachelbel Canon. you. I hope you feel a little warmer inside instead of just warm on the outside. I'm going to head back up to the stage and we're going to combine the two groups back together. You're going to hear another French piece by Jacques Offenbach, a famous piece called Can Can. At the beginning there's an introduction with the small group plus a few advanced fourth grade players. And then you'll hear the whole group join in on the bridge, which kind of is an intermediate section, and then everybody will be on the melody together. So, Can Can. Thank you for the reminder. Announcement before we play the last piece. And the announcement just is very simple. If you haven't done the sign-up form for next year's ensembles to let us know what your child is planning for next year, there's a QR code on your program, and it's due tomorrow. So that would be a tonight assignment for anybody who hasn't done it yet. But you can take the program home with you, use the QR code, or you can dig in all your old emails and try to find an email from me. It's probably easier to just use the QR code on the program. Our final piece today is our most complicated, and we saved the most complicated for last. But the reason it's a little complicated is because it is not just everybody play the melody at the same time. This is bringing us to another level where we're playing in a more truly orchestral way. So the violins don't have the same thing as the violas don't have the same thing as the cellos. The melody gets passed around to different instruments at different times. So what does this mean for the kids behind me? They actually have to read what's on the paper and not just play from their brains how they think the song should go. So it's a little trickier for that reason. It also has repeats in it, and it has some traps with different rhythms going on. So and it's a fun song though. It's called Rustic Dance, and I think they've had a fun time learning it, and I think they'll have a fun time playing it for you. Parents, I also want to give a big shout out to you because the 6-day rotation is not an easy thing, and we so appreciate, and we sent a lot of reminders too, but we so appreciate any extra trips you might have made to school today to bring throughout the year to bring the instruments on the right days. So thank you so much for that. I think these students are very well set up no matter what their musical adventure will be next year. If it's orchestra or if it's band, they've gotten quite a lot of experience playing in an ensemble this year and they sound fantastic. So one more round of applause for the group.